Thank you, Carol.
Yeah.
Hey, good afternoon. Sorry, good morning. That's a pretty good start, isn't it? Terrible.
Morning flew by.
Okay, so good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's Assets and Infrastructure meeting, 11th of July 2024. Could we please all be upstanding? I'm happy to read council prayer. Almighty God, as members of the Rangitikei District Council, we give thanks for all the good things of our district and the advantages we enjoy. We pray that you will give us wisdom and guidance as we conduct the affairs of this meeting. We pray for all our communities and the district we represent. Help us to be fair and honest in our discussions and help us to work together in unity for the welfare of all your people. Amen.
Amen.
Members, once again, welcome along today. Welcome to those on online. We have no apologies. I have not been made aware of any public forum. Just checking, there's no public forum that needs to come to our attention, so there's no public forum. Conflict of interest, members, you're all aware around that. I will ask, does anybody have any conflict of interest that they wish to raise at this time of the meeting? Not seeing any hands go up, so thank you for that. If they should raise a concern at any stage through the meeting, please raise it at that point. Confirmation of order of business. Again, I have no changes being signalled to me with regards to the order of business, so we'll take it as per the order paper and as per the agenda. Just looking now for confirmation, item number 6 on the agenda, confirmation of the minutes. I know that you will have all read through those. Rather than stepping through them line by line, has anybody got any notes or anything they'd like to say with regards to the minutes that have been circulated to you all? Give you a couple of minutes just to refresh your thoughts on that. Okay, being nothing, could I ask somebody to move they be a true and correct record? Councillor Lambert, thank you. Looking for a seconder. Councillor Duncan. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? That motion is carried. Thank you. Moving to item 7 on the agenda, which is the follow-up actions items from previous meetings. I will just go through this one a little bit more detailed because it does relate to varying different members of staff and questions that have been raised by councillors. Looking at item 1 on the agenda, any questions there? Your Worship.
Yeah, I just wonder if there was one submission regarding this, surely it's a council decision. I'd rather see that decision just put in front of us. If there's a repeated number of people wanting extended hours, then it's a consideration. But
Mr. Bernardi, is there a report or anything coming back to on this one? It is on the action list.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This one was a bit of a surprise to me. In the submissions, we actually replied to this one submission saying that it's not budgeted for at the moment. If we would want the contractor to open these for more hours, it will cost a substantial amount of money that's not in the budget. So it's funny, we have replied and council would have seen that reply. It was just a bit of a surprise that popped up there.
On the grounds of that, is that now a matter that we consider closed? Is that appropriate?
you could recommend to council that we do not extend. And I just don't want to see this going round and round in staff time.
Could we just move that action to be taken to the next full council meeting for a decision on that, or can it be done now?
I'm happy to move a recommendation to council that we do not extend.
Okay, I'll take that recommendation. Looking for a seconder to that.
I just wanted to ask a question about it.
Okay, we've got a mover on the floor for it. Do I seek a seconder for it first? Councillor Carter seconding. Before we go, Councillor Moore.
Yeah, I know about extending the hours and all that could be an extra cost, but I have mentioned before, is there a chance we can get 24-hour bottle and card recycling there by just turning the, bit like down in Foxton, you can drive up with your bottles, you know, most of them are somebody else we know here's, but chuck them in 24 hours a day,
My thinking on that would be that that's actually a slightly different question to what's been asked in item 1 of our action list. So I think that's perhaps something that we could maybe investigate that further through Raj and Arno possibly. But if we're dealing with this one first, we've got this motion on the floor. Is anybody looking to speak to the motion that we do not extend the opening hours of the transfer station? You'll speak to it?
I think the chair is absolutely right. They're two separate issues with regard to your issue. We have tried this and then found repeatedly people dump rubbish beside it that is all sorts of general waste. And it hasn't been a successful thing for us. Speaking to my motion, if there was a wide number of people saying, hey, we want to extend the hours, but this is a one-off and it is expensive.
Further speakers to the motion?
Yes, I'd just like to support what the mayor said if it's just a one-off, but I also think that the whole subject around waste is going to have to be revisited with the new systems that we're putting in, proposed to be putting in over the next 3 years anyway. So I would like to see this visited, because personally I've had people saying this, but there was only one submission, so I support the motion.
Yeah, I think you raise a good point about the fact that we've made some decisions in our long-term plan with regards to our waste and recycling, which may bring this one wrapped into it. So that's a very good point. Further speakers? Being none, we'll put the motion to the floor that the Assets and Infrastructure Committee recommend. So
Yeah,
council.
it's supposed to be that recommend to council.
So we'll just check the wording and get this right.
Technically, you've already made this decision though through the LTP.
Yeah. Just a matter of getting this started. Do we need to do this motion then, do you think? It's just getting it off our action list here. Okay, we have a mover and we have a second. It was moved. Wish Mayor seconded, Councillor Carter. Put that to the vote. All those in favour? Aye. Against? That motion is carried. Thank you for tidying that up. So we'll now remove that from the list and thank you. Perhaps just wrap up some of those other comments at a later stage. Okay, moving to item 2 on the agenda. Follow-up actions list, item 3. Item 4. 5. 6. Item 6, Councillor Duncan.
Just around the Gretna corner, it says officers have not heard further and will need to contact again. So has that contact been made, or that's still just, that's the intention?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So that's further contact to be made to NZTA, correct?
Yeah.
Thank you. Item 7. Item 8. 9. 10.
Oh, actually, sorry.
Councillor Duncan, item 10.
Yes, no, sorry, item 8.
Item
I
8.
do have this to bring up later, but maybe I'll bring it up now. Just the garden edging, debris overflowing into drains.
I think what we'll do is,
Yeah,
I've
Pass it
raised that
further
matter
down.
and passed that further on to Mr. Bernardi, and we're going to take some of your questions and other questions from Councillor Wong at the beginning of the PMO report.
right, thank you.
So, but I do acknowledge that relates to that item that's sitting on the action list. So we will pick that up later on in the meeting.
Fantastic, thank you.
That was on item 8. Councillor Loudon, what item, please?
If you're looking at
What number?
8, 9, 10, 8, 9, 11, and also going back up into 6. They're all Waka Kotahi requests, and it's been 9 months since that request was made, but there's been no response. And some of these requests are based around safety issues. So I would suggest that we actually push
Okay,
A
that's
response
it.
from Waka Kotahi.
Yep, you're quite right in identifying those items, but before I go to, who may have some comment on that with his experience dealing with Waka Kotahi. Mr. Bernardi, have you got any comments?
Thank you. Mr. Chair, yeah, we're not waiting for the response. It's like submitting a request for service. It's their corridor. They have to look after it. And all we can do is request them to do it. But they're not going to reply to us. It's a request for service. And that's as much as we can do really, is we can ask them to go and have a look at those items.
So that is the normal procedure
Yeah.
we would follow. So we have followed the
Yeah.
procedure with regards to these action items. Your worship, have you got a comment to make on that at all?
I can follow it up with the regional manager. I'll be seeing her shortly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, councillor Loudon. Further comments on those action lists? Okay, so we'll move on from that. Item 8
Oh, we
is,
do need to receive them.
oh, sorry, somebody moved that we received the action list report. My mistake there. Councillor Dalgetty, seconded Councillor Lambert. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. That item is carried. Chair's report, 8.1. Nothing much more than my thinkings. Probably not too much more in there, particularly just drawing our focus to a couple of the projects that we still have ongoing and the significance of them, and we need to keep a focus on them. And I thank the staff for their continued work in those two significant projects. We can just keep a focus on that as members. I think it's really important. Any comments from my chair's report? Councillor Carter? Received. Receiving, seconding. Councillor Sharlin, question. Councillor Dalgetty?
No, I wasn't sure where to bring this up, Mr. Chair, but further to our previous minutes and the comments around we don't know about slip outs until someone does an RFS.
Could we, so what was that you said? You don't know about what, sorry?
Slip
Dropouts.
outs is what I called them.
Oh, yeah, dropouts on the road.
Dropouts, yeah, beg your pardon.
Yes,
They didn't sit that comfortably with me.
that we don't know about them until someone reports them.
Yeah, and I just wanted to elaborate on that. Is that do we not have someone that looks at the condition of our roads on a regular basis?
Well, my first thought on that is we've got 1,300 kilometres of road, of which 400 and something kilometres of it are unsealed. So I guess having someone look at a regular basis is somebody driving them, and they could drive over a bit of road and the slip happens behind them. So unless Mr. Bernardi's got any other comment, I don't know how we could have a constant visual on all our roads. But I would guess that we have some sort of roading maintenance teams up the roads at various different times. But our first attention that there is a problem would come from a notification to us, particularly by an RFS, I would have thought in the first instance.
Okay, so further to that, just concern around those RFSs are effectively directed to a contractor, and people that are putting those RFSs in around dropouts, condition of roads, are not getting any response. They've ticked the feedback box, but yeah, nothing's happening.
Okay.
So what do we do
So
in that situation?
the question there is really around the performance of our RFS system. Is that what you're raising?
Well, the issue is that it's related to the contractor, isn't it?
Yes, but the RFS comes to us here at council and then is redirected, is my understanding. Mr. Bernardi, have you got any comment on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I do. That's exactly what happens. So the RFS goes to the contractor. We measure the contractor's performance on their KPIs. So it's slightly different to the RFS system. And then the RFS system via our reply will then go back to the customer. But in cases like this, if we can have some actual examples, then we can look at what was going wrong there. Generally, people should get a reply and they should know what's going on. I think it's just, if it's that general, it's difficult for us to have a view on one specific one or two of them that's gone wrong. If we have actual examples, then we can look at those.
So Watershed Road would be an example at the moment.
With an RF, if you can give us a number or something to
Yeah, I
follow
can
up
find
on.
out
Yeah.
the number.
That'd be very helpful.
And then because, you know, because of the nature of the road, you basically could have someone there full time. We obviously can't afford to do that. But then it gets to a very bad condition because of weather related, whatever. And farmers have heard that the forestry offered to assist some of the work up there, and they weren't allowed to do that, which I can understand. But yeah, so there's content in the community, and I'm just wondering, are these things going to be addressed with our new system?
Well, there's lots of questions there, but if we unpick that a little bit, there's a little bit of speculation and suggestions of what was said by someone to so and so. So I'm not sure that we could expect staff to have those answers for that now. I mean, the suggestion that someone said that forestry was going to do some work on the road corridor, weren't allowed to do so, is, you know, we'd want to see some sort of more fact-based evidence about that, or what that actually, you know, you want to unpick what a comment like that might mean. But
Okay, so did that happen?
yeah, we don't know the answer to that, and without some specifics being directed to our team to then take that back through to our contractors, it's going to be really quite difficult to do. But it sounds to me that there's a bit of a frustration, a lack of attention to the particular road that you're talking to, and that is something that we could perhaps raise with our contractor to find out what's happening on that road. When was the last time they were up there inspecting it, and what is the work schedule for that road? Maybe the most appropriate way to deal with that, as you've mentioned, a specific road rather than specific incidences that have been reported through the RFS. But without that information, it's going to be quite difficult to unpick all of that, I should imagine. But Councillor Loudon, you've got a question?
Well, just a comment around that. It raises the issue of public safety, and if an RFS goes in, or if I service theft, yes, goes in, the person who lodged that knows it, the councillor knows it, and the contractor knows it, but the general public might not know it, who might be travelling down that road. Is there any sort of mechanism where Rangitikei District Council comms could have information around road status available to general public, like Waka Kotahi might do?
I believe that happens now through our comms team. If we've been notified of something, does it not? Comment from you?
Yeah, I can make a comment, and where we do know, like if there's been a road closure for snow, for example, for the Taihepe Napier Road, the team are really good at letting us know. They've got set times that they let us know about that, and then comms do put that up. They're included in that. If there's major slips, Philip Gifford is good at letting us know what those are. If there's small minor slips, potentially we won't know about those. So yeah, we do know about the big ones. That
would be a time delay, I guess, from notification to us to putting that out through the comms team too.
yeah, not
Potentially.
too big.
Not
Yeah,
too
not too much time delay.
Okay, there's a number of questions raised about that.
Can I just make
Kevin,
a comment?
yes.
I think with Councillor Fee's comment though, is that if people are having those discussions, got a better chance of having them fed in now that they're our staff. You know, and so we should be able to directly engage more than what we have been in the past, because they might have spoken to somebody that was not directly aligned to us in manner two. Whereas now we should be in a better position to be able to respond.
That's certainly what our collective desire has been as part of your question, as to whether or not we'd be better able to respond. We're certainly hopeful of that. With our the roading team coming back in house, we might be a little bit more reactive, quicker. We should know what's going on a little bit better. Are you happy to take the specific incident that you're talking through through to Arno, and we can just do a little bit of investigate and see whether that needs to be escalated for further action?
Okay.
Thank you for your input on that. Totally off topic of my chair's report, by the way, but thank you.
I wasn't sure we were supposed to bring it up in the meeting.
No, happy to have it come up at within that. Any further questions on chair's report? Really, just my loose thinkings. Councillor Duncan.
Yes, thank you for your report. It's a very good report. Just when your final paragraph, when you talk about the CapEx program being ambitious.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, with the $10 million that's been dropped off our budgets, is ambitious still the word, or? are we looking at impossible?
I don't think anything's ever impossible. The comment about it being ambitious was raised with audit. But I, for one, think we should be ambitious.
Yes.
I mean, you know, if you focus on the top of the tree, you get to the bottom branches. If you focus higher than that, you'll well and truly surpass the top of the tree. So I just think that we should be, you know, we shouldn't be afraid to be ambitious, but we just need to be making prudent decisions along those lines. We should have targets to achieve better things. And if you look at our CapEx program, all of them are long-term. The big ones are all long-term projects for the benefit of this generation, the next generation and beyond. And they all have a long-term focus on you know, the Rangitikei district as a whole. Some of them are going to be tough to meet. There's no doubt about that. So call that ambitious. I don't shy away from that, but I just think we need to try and do the best we can, even if we've lost some funding somewhere along the line. Let's see about how we can get more funding. Your worship.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think, did you say 10 million?
Was that the number?
No, I'm not sure that it is. It's 5 million over 3 years, and we just need to be just only not looking to pull you up.
No, good.
It's just we are online.
Clarify.
Thank you for that, Your Worship. But I guess the comment 10.5 is a general comment with reducing incomes to us and costs and money to us. I guess it's ambitious becomes a bit more challenging from time to time. But once again, just my loose thinking on the state of play. I'll move that, if there'd be no questions, I'll move my report to be accepted, seconded from Councillor Duncan. Put to the vote, all those in favour? Against? That motion is carried, thank you. Moving into item 9. And probably an apt place to jump straight into from Councillor Dalgetty's comments earlier about roading, but we're moving into the item 9, emergency works.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think before I start going through the infrastructure report, we have received some questions from councillors. And again, my appreciation for those, it really helps a lot. It gives us time to go and have a look and come to the meeting with the answers. So we had some questions from Councillor Duncan with regards to the Papakai pump station. It's not complete, so the contract's still open. We have not issued practical completion, so that's good. And we'll be sure that on the site, everything is neat and tidy in the way it should be. A lot of the questions is actually not in the scope of the contract. It's outside. It's additional things that we would look at. So myself and some of our engineers will go and have a look and see what we can do to tighten some of those up. That was not part of the contract. But either way, both of those will be dealt with.
Questions on that one, Your Worship?
In terms of the bottom two, to be confirmed, have these been approved as emergency works? One of them in particular, I think they're both out towards Rangawai. And one of them, I think, is a very short road, might be only servicing 1 or 2 properties at the very best.
So for the question, yes, this would have been on the original list. And from what I can gather, it's still in the investigation process of what we're going to do and how we're going to resolve it and what that might cost.
The second road, that's a reasonably major link out to Rangawai. But there's been a long slump site on that road that has gone on. I don't think that's the emergency event that's been referred to, but I am occasionally asked what's going to happen long term with that hillside. I don't expect you to understand where the site is, but when we get the new staff member on board, sort of catching up with these sorts of things. So I'm not sure that's an emergency event, but it's a huge, slow-moving slump.
Yeah. Okay, so is that something we can note, or and I do believe you've got some additional staff coming to help us through this process and through transacting through. Was that going to offer us that help?
it's always difficult with individual things like that come in, you know, but anyway, this one will definitely have a look at it and I'll figure out what's going on, if there's any RFIs or is there any history on that road for anything or whatever. Okay. We'll start there and we'll investigate and see what we can find.
Okay. Your worship, you're happy that that's been raised and we can keep a follow on
A
that?
new person is obviously going to have to spend a couple of weeks on the road, isn't it? That's the reality of it.
Well, I think that's reality, and it possibly also picks up councillor Dalgetty's earlier comment too, to get a really good understanding of our roading network. I think would that be? Possible.
It's very interesting actually for me. Well, you've got to remember the person coming in is managing the whole activity. There's no way this person will be hands-on driving around the network looking at slips and things. It's to drive the activity, grow relationship with councillors and with NZTA.
Okay.
And what I'm hoping is that we can deliver more of the correct information so we don't have the frustrations that we have at the moment. And I would want that person to concentrate on that rather than.
Yeah. Okay.
But at the same time, now that we have hands on the levers, these are the things that's frustrating councillors and our community, and we should look after them. But, you know, so we would pay more attention to those and have the right people drive around and have a look.
Great, thank you. That's good response there. Just coming back to councillor Duncan's question. So we've captured that somewhere as an ongoing activity when you said it's not being signed off. So we'll get picked up in the final sign off of that. And you mentioned it's not within the scope of the contractor's work, but we can pick that up additionally within our budgets to get that finalisation of some of those bits and pieces done, or was that some further work that's required? How does that unfold?
Yeah, further work. So we'll investigate and have a look at what's doable, and then we'll have a look at the cost. And if there's a problem, we'll come back.
Okay. Does that get? Do we need to have that listed further down in the report, or does that just sit still under Papakai, or does it need to be in action? Because it'll be two separate things. Once it's just mindful that it could get dropped off the radar somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
How do we capture that so that?
Probably in the
Yes, sir.
follow-up actions, I would imagine is the best place for it to be.
We just slip
yeah.
that in.
Yep.
Under the follow-up action so that we can, it's a question that councillor Duncan's brought to the table from the community up there, and I think we've got to make sure we capture it.
I agree. There was one further request for questions that came in from councillor Wong.
Yes.
And that was with regards to, let me just remind myself a quick second.
Page 22.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was the health and safety report from Higgins. Councillor Wong notes that there was an increase in the lead indicators, so the stuff that they do before bad stuff happens. I'm not sure what would be driving that as a business, as an organisation for Higgins, but I would definitely encourage them to keep doing it. The more stuff we do up front, the less bad things happen. So if they're going to spend more time on the lead indicators, I would definitely support their position and ask them to continue with it. That's really what that says.
Thank you. Councillor Dalgetty.
On that same document, I just interested that they don't log their near misses, however. And I would have thought that would have been a good thing to monitor.
The near misses are in there. There's just none.
So aside, that's why I question it.
Your worship, you've got comments there? You're thinking?
No, but I've got something not regarding to this one, but another comment if you like.
Okay.
Yeah, so the second question from councillor Wong was with regards to the upgrade we're doing at the Thai wastewater treatment plant, and that the E. coli numbers have dropped off considerably. And the question really was, do we have to go that far, or can we do a little bit less if it's going to cost less money? It's a really good question. It's interesting. Really what we're trying to do is to remove the algae, because the algae sends us over some of our condition limits. But also we don't want to inject a whole lot of algae into our type of stream. It's just not acceptable. So the main goal of what we're after is to remove that. And one of the big benefits is that we're also removing the E. coli out of the water. I had a quick look at our limits, which complicates the picture even more. We don't have an E. coli limit on the pipe coming from the wastewater treatment plant, but we have E. coli limits in the stream, which makes it really difficult for us because we don't control the stream. And sometimes we would be over the E. coli, but it's not because of what we've done, it's because of the stream itself. But anyway, those limits are 260 living cells per 100 mils from one of November, 1st of November to April, so over summer. And then the winter, it's 550. So it's about double in the winter. And that's obviously because the flow is much higher. So those are our two limits, and they're in the stream, downstream of our discharge. So I would suggest as low as possible is what we should be aiming for on the cola.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for that question. Councillor Duckett.
Can you just, sorry, I'm a bit slow. So 260 units of E. coli.
Those are living cells,
Living
CFUs
cells,
per
that's
100
what you
moles.
said.
So they will take 100 moles, they'll put it on a medium and see how many grow.
Just before we, so we're not sort of jumping all over this report, because there's a few matters in here. Bearing in mind that we are talking about the report ending for the 24th of May, and there's a number of projects ongoing and completed. So rather than just jumping through it, do you just want to step us through some of these pages of these works, Anna? And
Yes.
And if you do, if there's a particular works that you've got an interest in, team, put your hand up and we'll address it at that stage. So we're looking at page 16, I think we're on now, Anna, if we just sort of step through.
Correct, yeah. So the first category after the emergency works would be rehabilitations. And you'll see they are all complete except for Pukipapa. And Pukipapa will be completed in this financial year.
Councillor
Just a
Loudon.
question on emergency works, the Turkana Valley, the rock job. I gather there's an issue with an underground stream there,
Groundwater.
groundwater.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how significant that is to rehabilitation of that. So.
But actually it
That's
was,
managed.
yeah, it was significant. We didn't expect as much groundwater as we encountered. So what we had to do is add more earthworks and more rock. And it's just made the solution more expensive. But the solution still is going to go ahead as designed, just more of it. Have to deal with that.
Okay, thank you, councillor. So we've Road still underway. We're moving into the next part. Large number of completed there. Kara Bridge, we will stop and pause at that one.
Yep.
Or any questions? I know that certainly the Northern Ward councillors have been giving a strong focus on that. Councillor Dalgety.
I just, obviously that this hasn't been the perfect project. I just wonder that now we seem to have gone back and need these vertical hangers done, which we were originally told at a public meeting was unlikely to be needed. Do we need to have another public meeting to just get the public faith back on board with where this is at?
My question would be has this information been circulated widely outside what we see in our order papers
On the
the
website.
situation with the
Yeah, it's on our website.
So
About
where the
vertical
situation
hangers
is.
are supposed to be 15th to the 16th of August installed.
Councillor Wong.
I sort of saw things a little bit different from councillor Dalgety in that the hangers were taken away to be tested. And it wasn't actually, I got the impression it wasn't actually told that it'd be okay, they would be tested, and if they were okay, they would not be replaced, but that was why the whole idea of testing them.
And my understanding in a further report is that the hangers are due to be replaced soon. Is that right, Councillor Moore? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Is that the
Yeah,
understanding?
no, it's on the website, it says 22 hangers on the 15th to the 16th of August. Hopefully.
So it's an ongoing
July
project.
till 16th of August, yeah, not the 15th,
Oh, sorry.
16th
Yeah.
of August, yeah.
So it's
So just
From
some
now till the middle of
explanation
next
around
month, they
why
should
a
be-
swing bridge is suddenly needing fixed hangers, I think would help in the community.
I'm not sure if we can get into that level of detail. I'm not sure. Worship, have you got comment on this?
Yeah, first of all, we offered to have a public meeting, and Manawatu said that they didn't want that. They're the ones that have been driving this project. They're not fixed hangers. The hangers aren't fixed. But it's the the structure at the start of the bridge that has been welded solid. But the hangers will just replace the existing hangers.
Well, it's a,
But the interesting thing is I haven't had an update as to reflect the increased budget with regard to this.
I guess that's where we should be also considering where the cost lies on it. Whilst it's a project that's been delayed and caused some frustration in the community, it's a project that has to be done right. I would assume that we've got to get that right. But whether or not public meetings to discuss it further are going to help speed the process up or not, I'm unsure as to whether or not that will be beneficial. But can we improve our comms out to it? Perhaps that's something we can do. I was of the opinion that I thought the comms had been going out fairly regularly with the update with regards to the bridge. Councillor Duncan.
I'd like to support the sentiment from Councillor Dalgety, because I think we have had a lot of damage done to reputation here, and unfortunately it's actually our reputation as well, although we're not the lead. And so I do believe that the community are aware of this, these next steps, and the frustration has been mostly around the fact when they haven't been made aware. So that's good that they do know that this work is about to happen. The one person who seems to be representing the community, who I think we're all aware of, could be contacted and perhaps asked again if they would. But and I'd be happy to, as a local councillor, to up my game there. But yeah, with Manawatu as the lead and them saying they don't want a meeting, it does put us in a very difficult position.
Councillor Moore.
Two things, but carrying on from what Councillor Duncan said, I think it is good to have, but I think that, in theory, by the 15th of August, that work should be complete. So we've only got a month. So I guess if it's not complete by the 15th of August, then we haven't, that's the time to get the disgruntled community together and say, this is the reasons why.
So,
But I have another question.
Okay. Karen, next question.
Have we ever, I can't remember, have we ever had a budget for the repair on this?
Yes. Yeah. It's a project that goes back 18 months or more, 2 years now, doesn't it? So 18 months.
What is the budget then?
11 million or something.
Just for the repair?
Yeah.
No, it was less than that. I think it was just over $1 million, but I can't remember the numbers.
Yeah, because remember, there's Wakakodahi's funding their portion share of it. We're talking about the total.
Yeah,
and we have a portion share of it.
Maybe get an update.
Okay.
Could that be updated in our next season of the
The cost of this repair.
the whole budget and where we're at with it?
Yeah.
And also adding to that, have we ever had come to an agreement with Manawatu District Council and ourselves about our portion of
Share costs.
share of costs?
Worship, you might have comment on this with your knowledge
Can't
of.
remember.
I brought this as a discussion item to council as to whether they wanted me to push for an increased share to be paid by Manawatu. Wasn't an attitude or for our council to do that.
The benchmark would be shared bridge 50% and shared with the different offset costs by the far right. That would be the standard and the norm that I would have thought would be the standard. But it's a good point to have an update on where the budget is with this particular project. We get a little more accurate, and I think you also raise a good point that there is a benchmark and a timeline set for August. I think was the comment that we heard earlier. So perhaps we could defer the question of whether or not from Councillor Dalgety there should be a more public meeting or more formal engagement until we've got to that point. And that might be the best way to.
Maybe we could have a ribbon opening.
Well, let's hope for that. But thank you for that question. But we'll move on because there are another number of items on this. So Denardi, we're just ticking through off some of the works that's nearly completed and awarded contracts.
That's right. So next category is road improvements. And as you can see, we are heading towards the end of the year. A lot of them have been completed. Any specific questions on that list?
Your Worship.
Yeah, just a question around process. So as I understand it, our existing contract with Higgins had a clause that road improvements should first be offered to them, and rather than just going straight to contract.
No, it's incorrect. So what happens is there's the maintenance contract that's specified, and then there's capital works.
Yeah.
As part of the deal for this year, is that we would offer them the capital works first. If they don't have the capacity, then it goes out to market.
So capital works, yes, as an offer that has to be made by our existing contract.
No, this is for the extension, for the 1 year extension.
Yeah, talking two separate things.
Yeah, so it's not in the existing contract, no.
Yeah.
And for instance, in the last financial year, we used a lot of other contractors to do that work.
So emergency works, do they have to be offered to the existing contract holder first?
No.
So I thought there was a little clause in there that was sitting in the existing contract. I'll go back and reread it.
Yeah.
The work that's been awarded then to loaders, was that a contract that was offered and loaders were successful, or was it just awarded to them?
No, it was tendered to the open market. All of them, all of the works that gone out was tendered.
Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Councillor Loudon.
Just a question on the Makuru Road, Goldings Line, works. What's actually happening there? It's underway.
Oh, I can get the details. I don't know.
I drive past it every day. It looks like it's just a pullover area for the vehicles turning onto
Yeah.
Goldings Line. That's speculation.
If you can, did you want more detail on that? Goldings Line?
It looks quite significant regarding the infrastructure under the road, regarding water management and things like that. I just was interested in understanding what was happening there.
Okay. Perhaps you can come back directly to
I will.
Councillor just for that with an update, or
Email.
direct to Councillor
Yeah.
Loudon or perhaps to all with regards to that question. Councillor Duncan.
Just a quick one on the page 19 at the top, Morwhongo Valley Road. They put in 3 culverts and a hard rail around the edge of what is a very significant drop off. And we have a lot of trucks on that road. And also it is the alternate route for State Highway 1 if things happen north or south of Taihape. So it's really quite a significant job they've done there, and I just wanted to commend the roading team for that. I did put in an RFS to thank them, but it's nice to do it publicly as well. Thank you.
Yeah, if we carry on stepping through this report, Councillor Dalgety.
I just would like to agree with Councillor Duncan. It's very impressive what they've done there. Excellent.
Good to hear. Stepping through, Mr. Benani.
Thank you very much. I think if there are no further questions on that list.
It's just an update.
What I might just mention, I think there's a lot of interest, it would be the Ngatawa Road. Yeah. Walking and cycling shared pathway, the last one on the list on page 19. It seems to us, and we haven't had confirmation, there's still budget items that we have not had confirmed the funding from NZTA yet. To the value of about $4.5 million. It's quite substantial that we still haven't received any feedback from them. We all suspect that walking and cycling will be zero for the next 3 years. I think that's one of the items that will not receive any funding. Yeah, I think so. So it's just a bit of a flag. Also, I've passed on the Calico line design to the contractor so we can start getting a feeling for how much it's going to be as it stands. And yesterday I discussed some alternatives with them in case it is too expensive and we can't afford what we've budgeted. So I can come back to councillors and explain to you what the numbers are like and then allow you to make a decision if necessary.
I think it's a good point. Both of those items are ultimately going to come back down to this council to make a decision on, because they, as you've heard, unlikely to be subsidised funded to any great extent. So those could well be quite significant fundings that this council will have to consider. Councillor Dalgety.
Just a clarification, please, further to our last council meeting. So this pathway, footpath, is going to the Ngātawa School gates or to Ngātawa Road?
It goes just across Ngātawa Road, a little bit, maybe 50 meters across, to an existing.
Gateway.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As I mentioned, bear in mind, this was a part of a greater plan that was come with our shared walkways and pathways, which dates back 3 or 4 years now, to have that link between the whole town right around. So, but it is worth noting that its costings could be challenging. Hence our ambitious CapEx program.
Yes.
Comments earlier. Yeah. Carry on, sir.
Thank you. So we'll move on to resilience improvements. There's a whole long list of things. Really, it's in the environmental protection space. It's culverts and stream crossings and things that's all been completed. We move on road to zero. That is to improve safety on the roads.
Yep.
I would imagine the ones that are underway would be completed by the end of the year.
Yeah. And then
Unsubsidized public train. Yeah, that's actually there. I might bring, we had a discussion about this yesterday, and we were considering, first of all, I've asked the contractor what the cost would be to seal all of that. If we take into consideration the big trucks that will be turning on that parking area, and to build it in a way that can resist that. The contractor mentioned an interesting item is that they've had more requests to look at the piece of road between the new playground and the hall. There's been more requests for that than for the parking area. I thought it would be wise or useful to council if we've got some numbers around both those solutions, to bring it back to the table and ask where your priorities are and which you would prefer for us to pursue.
Yeah, I think that's a practical way to look at that, given it is unsubsidised, clearly, as we all know, unsubsidised means 100% funded by us, which is 100% funded by ratepayers without our far rate or NZTA contribution. So it is something that we do need to keep an eye on and make practical decisions with regards to the budgets, and also practical decisions, which, as I said, there's also earlier in my report, will be hard decisions to make, but sometimes they're going to have to be made. So we're moving on there, unsubsidised, some mitigation ceiling. Not too much more in there, and I think you've covered the, sorry, Your Worship.
And just before you go into that, I've been asked twice for the cost, how much it costs to reinstate the Ingle pathway. Could you just flick that through to me, please?
Just checking on that, was that not a storm event?
Yeah, it was a storm event.
Did we get funding for that?
No, the locals are pretty aggrieved as to how it was done.
Well, certainly all I would say is I walked through the other day, it's very nice and it's very, very tidily being done. It's a nice pathway now that people can walk through with prams and push bikes and other bits and pieces. It's certainly been well done, but good question to ask as to what the cost of it were, but it's just like a lot of things, nice to see it finished.
Yeah, absolutely. A quick update, all credit to Crystal, for Councillor Loudon, the Matariki Goldings line job, that is a right turn bay off Matariki onto Goldings line to make it safer. That's what they're doing now. So how's that for a bit of magic?
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Wait and tell.
I did have a
Just like that.
subsequent question I've got written down there for you.
Is that David?
And was it scheduled and was it necessary, or is it future-proofing the road for possible use of that road?
It's safety driven. From what she's found, it's to improve safety on vehicles turning off.
It comes over the brow of that hill, which is a blind spot. You've got a car sitting dead at the bottom of the hill as you come over.
And Matariki is quite busy with lots of trucks.
Yeah, because it is the It is the heavy traffic bypass
We
route.
can take that off the follow functions. Thank you very much. Chris.
Thank you to staff who are sitting in the background that managed to come up with that magic and send the answer through to us so efficiently. Okay, so if
Right,
we
so
carry
we
on
can
through that, I
continue.
think, does that largely tick off that report?
Correct, unless there's any other questions.
I think what it does highlight when you actually have a look at it and look at it in some detail, the amount of work that's going on.
Mm.
If we wonder what our construction teams and our roading teams and our staff are doing and the cost of things, take a look at this report and just understand how much of it's been completed. And if you started putting numbers in behind all that, you'll soon understand what the cost of some of this stuff is. But it's good to see that a number of them have been completed as we end of that year, and it's the end of May report. So effectively, it's our completion through the end of that financial year as we move into our new one, which we're in now. Mr. Toombs.
If I may, yeah, just page 24 shows the May figures, as you pointed out, Chair. 86% of the roading total was completed at the end of May.
Yeah.
We received this week the June figures, which now figures now 98%.
Oh, good.
So it's pretty impressive. Probably the biggest volume of work done, I'm guessing, in the financial year.
Excellent.
Congratulations.
Good. Means we've spent a lot of money, which some might say is bad, but it also means it's good because we've actually got some stuff done. We've improved resilience, we've improved safety, and we've improved the road corridor across the board. So that in itself is a success. Contractor health and safety, we touched on that a little bit earlier. Is there any matters on that?
Yeah, the only
Sorry.
comment I'd make, Mr. Chairman, is that the near miss close call has been none for the whole year.
That was raised earlier, I think, from councillor Dalgetty. So that is something that perhaps our staff might raise with our contractor and go, hey, just to make sure that they do have their proper appropriate processes in place. Anything further? If not, I will move that the assets and infrastructure report ending period May 2024.
There's another section.
Oh, you want to
where
go
we have
through?
3 years, so the compliance is
Sorry.
the next portion of this.
Yep.
And on page 25, there's a short summary that makes more sense than all of the reporting after that. The reason why I do that is to kind of remind you of the whole year, because we have to remember, once you're compliant once, you're compliant, non-compliant for the year. So I don't want a position where we think things are compliant because it's compliant all the months except for 1 month. And at the end of the year, we are non-compliant. So really, the drinking water compliance, pretty good, except for the Hunterville. It's the pressure differential, and what happens is when the water is dirty, the filters block up quicker, and the differential is too high before and after, and that then signals to come out to ROI that it's impossible to achieve the same filtration, which then means theoretically there could be a risk that there could be some protozoa getting through. And that normally happens in the wetter months when there's rain and the Rangitika River gets a bit dirty. That's something that does come up. It doesn't mean though that the water is actually there is a problem. We test it constantly and we are certain the water is safe. But on that rule, we can't comply if that differential is too large. All the other comply. And then we move on to the wastewater non-compliance, different things over different plants. The one I can give you some feedback on the Mangawika is the UV unit that kills all the E. coli is on the blink, and we've ordered a new one. It just takes a bit of time to get here. As soon as we get it, we'll install it.
Councillor Carter, you had a question?
Drinking water quality assurance rules. Just reading through this reminds me of a few concerns I've had from our local people regarding the flow. What is the flow for the Bulls water? Because it drops off considerably.
The drinking water,
Yep, the town water supply.
does the pressure drop or the flow?
Yeah, it is.
Pressure and flow drops considerably during the day.
Yep. So that's a really good question, Councillor. A big challenge for us in Bulls is in the old days when we supplied Bulls from the reservoirs, normally you'd build a reservoir on the highest hill you can find because that gives you the pressure that you're going to have in the system. The problem in Bulls, there is no high hills. It's very flat. And the highest hill we got is only 27 meters. So when all the water's standing completely still, the best you can do is 2.7 bar, or 27 meters head, which is very low. Generally, countrywide, you wouldn't want to go under 2 bar as a level of service. But if you only start at 2.7 or 27 meters, the moment that water starts moving, you start losing that pressure. So the more people that use it in the day and the faster the water is moving, the more pressure you'll lose. And that's why it drops away. The plan that we have with the new reservoir and the pump station is now we can employ some smarts. So we're not just dependent on gravity to help us now. And what we can ask the pump sets that we have, is to keep a certain pressure. So what the pumps will do, as people are using the pumps, will speed up and it will kind of sustain that pressure. What we have to be careful of, we can't exceed the 27 meters for a while because we're not sure what the pipes are going to do. It's asbestos cement pipes, very old. It's been at that kind of pressure for so many years. We are very nervous. So what we will do is we will probably chop it into zones and then we'll slowly up the pressure and see how we get on to see if we can improve that situation, but in a safe and controlled manner. But it is a change.
We've had that water supply for many years, and just of late, this has been happening. Is this because the water's been screwed down because of the continued breakings of the remains in town, taking the pressure off the remains themselves?
So there's no pressure to take off. We started too far. There is no pressure. So no, there is no pressure reducing valves in built at all. Yeah. So there's nothing we've done.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that answer. That was quite detailed. Your worship, you have a question?
Follow up to that one, the reservoir and pump station has been completed though, hasn't it?
Not the pump stations. The pump station's close to completion, but we haven't finally completed that. No.
Expected time to finish the pump station?
I would say probably end of August would be a conservative guess at this stage.
Thank you.
That's a good point. So your consideration though, too, with the increased pressure, what that, excusing the pun, but the flow on effect of what they can look like needs to be monitored quite carefully. We certainly see these matters playing out countrywide.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the original question, that was a follow-up, but the original question I had was the filters, the pressure differential on the filters, Huntable, for example, they have a backwash facility on them, don't they? So the backwash is not being able to cope with the...
Can't keep up, yeah. So if the water's dirty, as you can imagine, that filter blinds up real quick and then the pressure upstream is high and the pressure coming out is low and the differential is too high.
Backwash can't cope with it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So just a question back to Paul, is when you're talking about zoning areas, is there potential to improve the pressures like in the central city or in a new subdivision area?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So that's something we want to look at.
Pipes are laid, then those zoned areas could have improved.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we operate zonings, all pressure valves here in Marton, don't we?
Yeah,
got to, yeah. Okay, further questions, Councillor Dalgety?
Just page 30, when we, comment that MDC staff are managing the Tamata Arawahai. So that will now come in-house?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
I've had some conversations with them, so we can start growing that relationship between us and them directly.
Thank you.
Further questions on this section of the report? I think what is important to note and to pick up on from your comment there, Arno, is the fact that, one spike or issue means non-compliant, full stop. And it can, whilst it can look quite alarming reading these reports, it needs to be understood what sits in behind them. We'll just we've got a couple of, Councillor Duncan.
Just had a quick question, just on that Tamata Arawai, change of reporting to that calendar year rather than the financial year. Does that make any difference to us? Basically cuts off in the middle of summer.
No, it is tricky, but we have an external company that all of that for us. Yeah.
Does it anyway.
Yeah.
Councillor Carter?
I don't know whether this report's come back in, but the PFOS for Bull's water, has that had a result or? I knew it's been examined.
Yeah, so we have to do that once a year, and I think that's August or September we do that. Yeah. So it'll come up again.
Council having concerns.
Yeah. Yeah.
Councillor Delgate.
Just a comment, with regards to the reporting, as we've got that great summary at the front, some of that stuff isn't relayed into the, individual tables further, further down in the report. So, for instance, under all compliance, I think those comments would be valuable in the comments part of that table, just in case someone doesn't pick up the earlier stuff. Please.
Good point. It's not that too hard to do. We can bring those comments down through into the various different sections. Thank you. Moving on through that report then.
Yeah, that really brings us to the end of that report. Just again with the super magic happening in the background, Crystal has got some feedback on the cost of the Inglewood Walkway repairs. So the new culverts, reinstate the footpath and install subsoil drainage altogether was 42,000.
42,000, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you to Crystal. Great job.
Once again, magic happens. Okay, that's it. I think that winds up that item. If there are no late questions, Your Worship, you've got something on that?
Just the one that does concern me is the Mangaweka, that's the wastewater treatment plant, their coli one. And the reason it's non-compliant for a year, but to say that a UV plant is not working for a year is incredible to me. Because if that had been a UV plant that was on water supply, not wastewater, we would have to shut down that town supply. So surely there must be. I just can't understand why it would take a year to replace that.
Well, first of all, I completely agree with His Worship. It is unacceptable that it takes that long. The problem that we had there was a very old unit. We were trying to find parts to fix it, to see if we can make it go again. When we realized it's impossible, we have to get rid of it and then order a new one. We started that process, but yeah, I completely take on board and agree. It should be put in.
Yeah, I just hate to think that supply in New Zealand was so poor, because if this had been a water system, would be bad enough being wastewater, but it's horrific. Thank you.
So it's a good point to raise, that something we should focus about future design of things, the supply of parts for ongoing maintenance and upkeep. So good point to have.
So move received.
Councillor, sorry.
So move has been received.
Okay, good man. Okay. Councillor Carter moving, Councillor Duncan seconding. All those in favour? Against, that motion is carried. Thank you. If we're all happy on that, I believe we now need to move to Project Management Officer's report. Welcome to the table, Ishwa.
And Peter?
And Peter, you're coming up to join us as well. Thank you.
I think, Mr. Chair, if I may suggest, we can again step through them and see if anybody's got any questions. And then at the end, I want to give Ishwa the opportunity to discuss something in a bit more detail that we need some direction from.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So I'll let you can just take us through the report. 9.2.
Thank you very much. So, like I said, we'll go through these and see if there's any questions from any of the councillors. So the first one is the Marton Bulls centralisation project.
Worship.
Yeah, and there's a couple of references in the report to say the dedicated group is to correct a current situation, and there's another line saying solve the problem. What exactly is the problem?
Yes, I can reply to that. What we're describing there is the situation that we are in right now. So the list of problems are long, We do not want to discharge to the Tutanui any further. We really want to remove as much of the effluent out of the rivers as we can. So yeah, there's many problems and many issues we're trying to resolve with the centralization project.
Just because the way I sort of looked at it and interpreted it, was there an actual problem with the pipe that we've put into the ground or the bridge crossings? I just couldn't see the obvious tie, and people reading the report might think, hey, what is the problem here?
Yeah. Yep. No, it's so the pipe's perfectly fine. We just want to finish it off and get the bridges in.
Thank you. Okay, moving to Marton now.
Yeah, Ratana discharge to land. It's progressing in the background. We've just ordered a whole lot of pipe and things are progressing.
Papagai, we've touched base on that one earlier today. Are you happy with that, Councillor Duncan, that we've addressed that
Yes.
situation?
Very much
And
so,
the
thank you.
wastewater treatment with the membrane we also touched on, but is there further updates on that? That was a question from Councillor
Yeah, there's
Wong.
one further update on that. So we've done the membranes and the upgrades there, and the results have been really good. What happens now is between the oxidation pond and this membrane plant, there's another piece of equipment that actually has a first go at removing a whole lot of the algae. And we're busy installing that. That is a bit tricky because of the space, and there's a couple of challenges, but that's the next portion of the work.
I just see we've got Peter here at the table, and your project manager on that. Any further comments to what we've heard from Arno with regards to that one, 3.4, the wastewater treatment plant?
No comments.
Thank you.
Right, then we move on to the Marton water treatment plant. Another one, I think, where there's a lot of interest in. So I think the biggest, or most important feedback at the moment is the pilot plant's been running for about 4 weeks now.
Yeah.
And so far the result is quite encouraging. It's doing pretty well. We're now thinking of a way that we can start blending the two bores, or just test the new one or just the old one, and then we'll see how we get on. Ishmael, anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I think we touched on. I think it's just the test results have come out. I mean, far better than what we would have anticipated, and it's still in its very early stages of testing. So we've not even ramped up the membranes yet. So it should only get better as we go further. So it's just that at what point it kind of starts stabilizing. That's where our questions are around. So I think, like Arno touched on, so we've been testing it for about 4 weeks on the Tutanui stream, on the Tutanui bore itself. Like we're engaging a contractor to set up, to take water on the new bore. So in real world scenario, we're going to be mixing the two sources. So we just don't want to take one sample and run with it. So we're doing all that. So for the next 6 weeks or so, we're going to be doing 2 more tests, one with the new bore, and then probably at some point we'll start mixing the water and testing it.
Yeah, it's giving us results of what the water likes. Are you analysing the performance? Can you upscale and say,
Yes.
well, what does this plant look like on a bigger scale? Are we analysing that as well?
So what it's running on, it's an actual membrane. So it's one membrane that's doing the trick now. So it's just about scaling it. So put 10 membranes and not 20 membranes. So that's what we will arrive at depending on how well this performs.
Yep.
How many membranes are required. So in the process, we're also trying to evaluate how much of discharge we're talking about, what is the discharge quality like. So there's an ecologist who's also engaged to look at discharge before we get in touch with EV on that.
So it's a full performance of an
Yes,
upscale plant from where to go.
That's right. And we're also trying to evaluate what is the operating cost like.
Excellent. The consent application?
The consent application is ready to go. We should just
Submit
the application.
Okay. Not surprisingly, a couple of questions coming from the floor. Councillor Moore.
Is there enough water coming out of the new bore to do the whole supply, or do we have to blend? Or is the blending of the 2 bores just an option if required?
Blending comes into play only in terms of if we want to do maintenance on one bore, can we rely on only one bore during that period? That's where the blending comes into play. Otherwise, the new bore itself could supply up to about 5,000 or 6,000 meter cube. But bear in mind that if we're going full extent on that one, it means that we're going far deeper, and the pump size is going to go up, the power requirements are going to go up. So we will have to evaluate and find that sweet spot where we work both bores in tandem to keep the costs at a reasonable level.
So obviously no pump down the bore yet, not a main pump.
No, we've not put in yet.
Councillor Loud?
Well, you've mentioned here that the demolition contractor is expected to be appointed soon.
Yeah.
The chair in this report mentioned that this project was likely to sort of go past December. I don't want to put any pressure on the system. I'd rather have a very good job and get it right. Is there any indication as to approximate timeframes?
So originally what we wanted to do was once there was an approval to proceed, we should have gone ahead and proceeded with. So now what we're doing is we're taking a step back, getting all those components right by going after the trial plan. So the original, when the proposal was put out, we would have placed an order right away. But what we're doing now is going through that full trial plan scenarios and finding out what exactly comes up and then placing that order. So the membrane order is what will be pushed ahead. At this point, I may estimate probably at March or April, but I'll have to come back to you on that one. So at this point, it's just a guess, but we will have to wait until the whole trial plan thing is finished before we actually look into it.
Just if I can just clarify that my comment about it, my feeling that the project would be delayed was just my personal feeling. It was not based on any, and certainly not a reflection on the performance of the staff or this project as a whole. It was just a comment that I think we just need to make sure that we get it right and take that time to get that right. That is all.
And I certainly agree with that, I'd rather this actually was right and done properly.
Yeah, Councillor Duncan.
I hope this isn't a silly question, but the sentence that jumps out at me is around the power. Is it just because there's quite a lot to do to get the power connected, or do we not have enough power? I mean, do we have enough power? Is that going to be a problem?
We have put in a request for additional power. So there's new equipment coming in. So this is a slightly power intensive process as well. So we need to upgrade our power plant itself. So that's where there's a request. There's a request that's already gone in. But there was a pressure around it because there's not enough supply. There's not enough power to supply for the region. So my understanding is we were talking about the last bit of power that's left with PowerCo that we were vying for, because we don't know what other developments are happening in the region. So that's why we had to put in and lock that requirement in first.
Right, so it's in there. And we're quite confident it will come through.
It's certainly not unusual to have to go through that process for new development. Your worship.
Two things from me. Thank you for the report. The first one is, will it be able to still draw on the reservoirs? There's 2 dams if we need to. That's still a potential that, say something happens to the bores or something, will we still have that as an option?
The plan is to keep that option alive.
I can give some more detail around that. So we have engineers designing the inlets for us, so we can flick from one to the other, but we've asked them to make use of valving to be sure that we have those options available in the future. So if there's some terrible thing that happens, then we know we've got resilience up there and we can fall back to the old supply if we need to.
Thank you. And the second question is there being work done with the 2 legal teams around the guarantee?
Yes, so we're still working on, so we've only got an indication from them on the warranty terms and all that. So they're still finalizing with their vendors, which haven't come back to yet. So I think Steve, myself and Arno are working on it yet. So we've not confirmed anything.
Thank you. Just a question from you, Kevin, or response to that?
No, not in response to that.
No.
No. No, these guys are moving on.
Great.
A supplementary on the water reserve from the dams. if we need it, it'll be a different filtration system that, or will that go through our membranes? Because we're adding a whole lot of chemicals to it at the moment. So are you keeping the existing filtration as the backup?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Yes. So the two treatment processes are completely different on the two sources. But we are fortunate that the existing plant in that building will just stay there. It won't be used. The new plant will fit into the same footprint. That's why there's a bit of demolition inside the building to make it fit. But we would actually in the future be able to use either one.
Okay, some long-term security for a water source, which is encouraging.
Jeff, just with this emphasis on all this power that we need for this plant, what is the, is there any, plans for if there's a power outage, what is the,
There's also a backup generator that's being put in
At the plant and
at the bore source as well, both locations. And we're doing only, one of the bores will have a generator, the other one has a permanent power source, so, but depending on which one we're using, the generator could just be transferred back and forth. So we're not doing generator at both locations.
Okay, just looking if we're happy with a good number of questions on that one as to be expected.
Can I just ask one question on, because of the amount of interest that's in this particular project, is there the potential to have an open day with the testing? And people could see your experience, because I do think this is one thing that wherever I go, I get that question. So I don't know whether opening it up at this stage or some stage while a trial is it worthwhile just to buy in the community as to what's being done?
To go see the trial plant itself.
Or just something to think about as to how you buy that. No, it's just it's starting as
I think it's a great idea. I think it will attract so much attention from the local community. And it's an opportunity for us to grow a bit of positive communications around what we do.
Is that something that goes to you, Carol, to follow up as to how that might be in conjunction with the SWAR and ANA as to when the appropriate time might be to put a plan together for that? Certainly a good idea. Next one's the item 3.6 there, Marton Offices Library Project, Ishwa. Not sure what's happening on that at this stage. Or did you want to go into that one?
Not much, but we've kind of had a conversation with team architects on conducting those workshops with the governance rep and ELD and the staff for a start. So we've kind of had their offer. We should start looking at starting those workshops in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then we've planned for about 4 workshops.
Excellent. It's got very early stages of that project, obviously. 3.7, we might jump, sorry.
Well, we've also tried to fix up a meeting with Horizons as well. So we've just done it. So just to get there.
3.7, we might jump over that one till later. As Ishwa's got some update. Is that what you were looking to do? We say that's the Taipu grandstand. We might just slip that to the bottom of the pile. Not that it should be at the bottom of the pile according to Councillor Duncan, of course, but we'll move it to further on down the agenda. Councillor Doka, do you have a question? Okay, we'll come to that one. Taipu Town Hall, item 3.8.
Discussion later.
Yep. And 4.1, Scott's Ferry. We had some details with regards to that presented to us at the council meeting last week. Some possible updates to address that, but I've got a question here from Councillor.
Oh, yeah, but mine, I'm just putting my farmer's hat on regarding the tractor we're proposing to buy, and the training that's underway. I just hope that they realise that one of the number one causes of insurance claims amongst farmers is birds' nests under the engine. Like, it won't just sit there waiting for a flood, it will get used. And I believe a local contractor is having a clearing sale, and if we have someone on the inside, probably fix up the reason.
Thank you for that comment. We'll move on with that.
But seriously about that tractor, I hope it's not just going to sit in the shed.
No, so they will start tractor once a month or so. We'll take it to a drive.
Yeah, that's all right.
So Peter's managers.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, on the same thing, I've got some real health and safety issues concerning this. I mean, we're putting human lives at risk in the event of a flood, it's all very well to say we've got an early warning system, but they've still got to get out there when there's a flood coming and get a tractor hooked up and pump water out. Pretty risky operation, considering what happened in 2004 when the water came from the other end.
If I can add some comment to that. Mr. Chair, I take that on board. It is risky completely. And I think the only way around it is for us to agree on some standard operating procedures that says at a certain level, no more action, you have to now leave. We are also working with Horizons on an emergency evacuation route over the stop banks.
Okay.
That was something that the community felt very nervous about, is that they get cut off and they can't leave. So this will give them an emergency way out. So I think the only way to do it is to agree with this group that if the level is at a certain level, they have to backfill from that.
Yeah.
That will protect them.
Oh, that's good.
But then might I just add that the system we're putting in is monitoring the levels. And you will see it on the screen. So it's viable for everybody to see. We can nominate people. So we will nominate somebody in RDC.
Yeah.
We obviously will have the firemen involved, and everybody will be in control of where the levels is at and the risk that is applied.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, I think that warning system would be good.
Yeah.
It is a good concern to raise, but, to have some standard operating procedures for all those concerned is largely better than what's been dealt with now.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because I'd suggest very little, if anything, is in place at the moment. So the risk is probably greater now than what we're going to be proposed to put forward, which will have at least some mitigation standards in there to address those risks. At the moment, I would suggest they're very non-existing at best. Councillor Carter.
To reassure councillor Charlotte, there's a lot of flat paddock area in that area that floods before it crosses the road.
Yeah, I know.
So that is there in itself. So there's a few hours involved in that. So no one's actually putting themselves against it.
Some local knowledge there. Our chief executive would just like to make a comment on this.
We also, we just mentioned the alternative for getting access out in an emergency over the stop banks. But what we are saying to the community is that's not to be relied on. If they're told to get out, we've got to get them out, because otherwise there'll be reliance on a route which we're trying to get in place for an emergency. It's not wait until it gets up to that level and get out. So we're trying to put in contingencies that give people the opportunity should something unexpected happen, and you would hope you'd never use them. So people would be asked to exit or evacuate prior to it getting to the stage that they use that.
Councillor Duncan?
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood. I thought the emergency escape route was for the person on the tractor. And I was just going to suggest an inflatable on the back of the tractor.
No, there is a track over the stock bank which would require some improvement to make it more suitable for that. Councillor Carter?
The exit they used in the 04 flood was actually through the forestry. They were escorted out by a forest police. Yeah. So as the stock bank had burst, so they couldn't use that.
Yeah. Okay. I think we've dealt with that one. If we're happy to move back onto the agenda, circulate back here to item 4.2, which is the Hatapu Bridges project, I believe. Is there any comment on that? Further updates, apart from we don't have the manager that here with us. Apart from the update that's on site being nothing. Looking at our northern councillors, nothing there. So do you want to move on to the Taihape Town Hall project at this stage, or do you want to deal with the grandstand item first?
Yes,
What
that's
suits
the one.
you, Ishra?
That's the one that we need Ishwa to supply some more details to councillors and
Okay.
get some direction.
Can I just cover off the Taihape Town Hall one? if you don't
Yes.
mind? So, obviously this report was copied across from council. So Ishwa and Galen have been updating the project plan for the Taihape project. And we're intending to bring a council report, asking council to sign that off at the end of July. And also with the potential of a contract in place. So that was the previous version, so. that is
Also noting that we did go through the report which has been brought over at our end of June meeting in some detail. So unless there's not anything more
majorly important from that, we'll take on board what staff have just said there, and we'll move straight back to that item with regards to the grandstand issue. If you're happy with that, yeah. Cool.
It's been quite some time since we touched on this on a regular basis, so just to refresh our memory, so we know that there's a budget of $1 million set, and so what happened was the architects who were involved on the Nava block, so they came on board, they wanted to look at it, so they teamed up with a structural consultant and looked at it and came back and said, so there are works that we could do which could be deemed as maintenance works, like just by adding additional nails and doing some plywood sheets here and there, replacing 1 or 2 purlins. They should bring it to that minimum 34% NBS. And that's what we looked at initial costing, and it landed somewhere about 700 or 800,000, which was within budget. So we had brought it back to council and said, but the thing was, we wanted to do further investigations. So the approval was to go ahead and do further investigations. So when we went back to them and asked them for that investigation schedule, they took 3 months to come back in the first place. But then when they came back, the whole investigation itself was about 4 to 8 months. And when we read through, it was more like an iterative process. So what we did was we engaged another consultant to peer review this process. What we understood was the whole proposal that's being put is something that's not widely used in the market. Nobody goes that route because it's a very iterative process rather than you just decide and go ahead and attack and move. But this is more like you try and solve one area, but then something else moves the other side. So you go and try and solve that, something else moves. So you don't have a clear indication of where it's going to land until you've gone through that process, spent money, done that work. So which is now with a limited budget, that's not something that we would want to embark on. So we've asked the other peer review consultant to see what's the next best alternative. But unfortunately, nothing is going to land in that million bracket. So what we said was, okay, do a reasonable, we don't have to go to what originally there was WSP had done an initial proposal that was a worst case scenario option. So we asked the consultant to look at something in between, which is reasonable to take and move on. So if we engage them to look at this, so we could look at a concept design stage, and then where they will look at 4 different possible options that we could look at the end of which we could look at a costing. So we don't anticipate this to land at around that $1 million, but it's just a question of how much over it's going to go. And at that stage, we should be able to go back to the community and say, probably this is what we've come back with. If you could come up with that additional funding, yes, this is a go. That's where we are. So we only want confirmation to take that step and engage that design consultant to go the other route, after deviating from what we had originally asked for.
All right, lots of questions on this one. We'll go with you, Your Worship, start with.
Yeah, so council approved $1 million for this project. That's fine, that's a council resolution, of which we're continuing to shave money from that $1 million. Council was very specific and said that we are the final funder. So in other words, the community has to find a way of balance. And that's the discussion that's going to have to be had with the community, and they should be very aware of that. I find it disappointing that no progress has been made towards that delta that will be left over. And it's going to be a pity if we go down the path of a whole series of consultants, spend a significant sum of money going through that process, and it just doesn't go anywhere. But that's council's position.
I tend to agree with you, Your Worship. However, I guess it's difficult to go back or to go to the community and come up with something concrete with regards to cost without having a plan. So I guess that becomes the contract. It's difficult to go back and say to the community that looks like it's going to be an X number of dollar cost. We already committed this. How does the rest of that money come from, and what does that look like? It's difficult without getting the number. So you're sort of damned if you do or damned if you don't. I think either way. Councillor Wong.
I believe, the local, groups that are involved with grandstand are aware of this. But they seem to be reluctant to raise funds until they have a goal and a plan that they're aiming for, because to apply for funding, and the funding will go, well, how much do you want? They'll go, we don't know. And they go, what do you want to spend it on? So that's their, but I do take Mayor Andy's point, because they really haven't moved very far along those lines, but that was their pushback when I have been asking them what the mayor's position was. So if we went down this track and got some figures back, then they would have some aim for, and I believe they'll start pushing in that direction. So,
Councillor Moore? As much as I agree with Mayor Andy about consultants, I think in this case it's been prudent, because it's shown that what was proposed in the original plan could have just added on, like Shua said, fix one bit and then another bit. So, yeah, I think we're probably in a good space that we can start going forward and saying to the community, this is what we're going to require you to put in, and they need that front today. They're not going to spend $1 million and say we want 300,000 out of the community, because probably never get it. So,
Yes, and something I think is important for the discussion, Ishwa, just correct me if I'm wrong, the change rooms is excluded.
So that was never in the question. So
Okay,
all
it's
the,
still excluded.
all my conversations with the community has always been around it, because that's where the whole lot of complications kick in, which will drive the cost up.
Because I think in the community, especially with the rugby groups, there's been some talk about that recently. And we just need to be clear that that is still the case. It's excluded.
Yeah, the original decision was to strengthen the grandstand.
Yep.
Itself, which would make the grandstand safe and fit for purpose to use as a grandstand, as a seating and viewing platform. Councillor Duncan.
Yes, I think that is a very much a strong topic, just referring to what Mr. Bennett has referred to. It hasn't gone away. So when council's plan comes forward, then at that stage, I'm sure the community has an opportunity to look at what they are prepared to do. I think also just on what Mr. Wong was, Councillor Wong was saying, the problem with Taihape recently is that we have had so many projects that have been calling on the communities for funding, such as the big one was the St. John's building. And that was another reason why the Heritage Subcommittee for the grandstand was reluctant to compete with that fundraising. I see in the report it says 3.7 says all offers that have previously been presented to council will be included in the report. And my question is that also any unsolicited offers that might have come to us? Yes. Thank you.
Can I just ask a question, Ishwan, without putting you on the spot? Again, the peer review work would take how long? Have you got an estimate of that?
I would estimate probably about 4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks. So it's a reasonably
It's on the concept stage that we're looking at. They quickly look at 4 different options and then it'll come back to us. Probably at that stage, we might have to engage a quantity survey just to tidy up the costs and see where it lands.
So it'll stay on the reporting schedule each time as we get.
Okay, Councillor Loudon. Sorry, Councillor Duncan, who's going first? You two, sort it out.
Sorry, just one further question. With the suggestion that has been made previously by council staff around using the grandstand, the underneath as dry storage, does that not also mean that building must be earthquake strengthened? That part of the building must be compliant for staff to be using it?
In terms of strengthening, yes, it'll be strengthened, but if we start using it, depending on how many people go in, so there's a fire regulations kick in. So fire regulations is what is going to push the price up.
Right.
Not the seismic stress, but for the whole structure, seismic strengthening will be done.
Right, good to know. Thank you.
Councillor Loudon.
I acknowledge what Andy has said. There is a limited budget for this from council, but I also appreciate what you've been doing and the approach you're taking. I think that's a good approach. My question is, how much money of that $1 million has been spent and then whatnot? You know the answer?
We're looking, we've spent about 260 up until this point, and probably the design would cost another 30. Concept stage would cost another 30, yeah.
Yeah, I think, further questions on that? I think there's a couple of things we need to sort of acknowledge. First of all, has been mentioned, is council made an active decision to put in $1 million into this fee with an expectation that further costs over and above that would be met by the community of Taihape. So that decision was made. The second thing is, and I also agree with Councillor Loudon here, I think your approach is right. And I think we do have to get this right so that we can go back to the community to say how much money is needed. But it is also, we need to be mindful, this is competing work for our staff along with Taihape Town Hall and this as well. So we just need to keep things a little bit prioritised. I'm thinking more of your workload as to how we shuffle these things in. We are already working on Taihape Town Hall. We're starting on this project here. This one has been sitting around for a long time, but I think we just need to be mindful about how we prioritise our workload. Councillor Duncan.
Yes, just thank you for making that point. The fact that this was supposed to be completed in the last long-term plan period, I think it was year 2 and 3, is a responsibility of council. So it should have been done by now. The fact that it's still here and the money is has so much less spending power, we need to take some responsibility for.
We'll just raise comment on that whilst that was part of that plan, it was also tied up with the Ngāawa block, which has been now completed. So the two were projects sitting alongside each other. This part of it hasn't been done, but that other part has been completed within that time frame. Your worship.
But yes, it was sitting in our long-term plan, but it wasn't sitting in that it had to be completed. It was a fund put aside. And it was contingent on the community raising the balance of money. So it's not our obligation to have completed it within the long term.
The money's budget.
There's a huge difference there. I know that council is looking at the possibility of somebody looking to raise funds, apply for funds. This will be a absolutely tailor-made one for someone to get their teeth into.
Did you have further questions, or that was just to tidy that one up? Is there any further matters arising on this particular item with the grandstand? Was there anything more we needed to go back to, Ishwar? Peter? Yep, good. No, Kevin, staff look like it's all happy. Greg, questions?
Portorino dump. I'll declare a conflict of interest only that I'm working on the property.
Has been acknowledged, but thank you for raising it again.
I've looked through some papers. This original project was about 500,000. Now I see in our papers, we're up to 2.5 million. I'll just really, as a ratepayer myself, probably going, geez, how does this sort of thing happen? And I know this is a project that has been fraught with problems, but also not being overseen properly, if that's the right word.
You've got to be a little bit careful when you say that. No, hold on, councillor.
The fact is, we're going from 500,000 to $2.5 million.
No, you're actually talking things there which I don't think are appropriate. In actual fact, the original project was set at $500,000, and the scope of the project became much larger. Council made active decisions to increase the budget to deal with the fact that there was a significant risk of water washing into the river that we weren't able to sustain. So I don't think that you can make comments about potential performance of staff at this meeting. So I'll stop you there.
Performance of staff per se. I'm talking about performance of maybe contractors that were employed. But
well, I think
all I want to say is that this is a
I'm sorry.
We've got to be
No,
careful.
Mr. Chair,
We've
this-
had
I'm
projects. that
sorry,
have-
Mr. Chair, this conversation should stop.
Yeah, I agree. So you've asked for a question of,
Okay,
of this
update on the
matter. So
Portorino.
what I will now ask is for our chief executive to answer if there is any updates on the Portorino project, which is noted as being unfinished and completed at this point in time. So that's the only thing that we could address. So I'll ask the chief executive.
So that's the
to address that.
driver for me, is to get it signed off by both Horizons and iwi. So we have appointed a person that'll be talking to you as to identifying the site where some of that soil still is. And then we've got to make good the site itself and also deal with that soil. So that should be happening in the next, person's away at the moment, so in the next week or so.
There is more cost to come as another question.
Yep. Right, thank you for that. Is there any further questions from the floor? Being none, thank you, staff, thank you, team, thank you for your continued work, everybody, and we'll pull the meeting to a close. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Move that the project manager's officer's report be received. I'll move from the chair, seconded councillor Duncan. All those in favour?
Aye,
Aye. Against? Motion is carried.
thank you.
And with that, we'll close the meeting. Thank you all.